What's up, guys, and welcome back into Breaking Boards. In today's episode, we're going to break down the Thursday Night Football Showdown contest over on DraftKings between the Seattle Seahawks traveling to take on the Arizona Cardinals. This game total currently sits at 43.5, with the implied team total for Seattle being 20.5, and the implied team total for Arizona being 21.5. Coming off a great Monday Night Football to close out Week 3, should be a fun game here to open up Week number 4. Took down a couple of GPPs on Monday night. Hopefully, we can do the same as we head into Thursday. Appreciate you guys being here. If you like the content, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, as I will be dropping NFL content throughout the NFL season for DraftKings. Again, I appreciate you guys being here. Let's jump into the player-by-player breakdown for Thursday Night Football's contest. Before we jump into the player-by-player breakdown, I want to take a 30,000-foot view of the slate and let you know what I'm seeing as we move into Thursday Night Football. And talking specifically about builds, if you are going to be building a 5-1 for Thursday Night Football, I would only be looking to build from the Seattle side if we're doing an onslaught. The Arizona offense has typically been condensed. I mean, you have guys like Trey McBride who are seeing a huge target share. He's seen almost twice as many targets as their leading receiver. You've got guys like Trey Benson with James Conner being out, and then you have Kyler Murray who can get it done from the QB position on the ground as well. So if I am looking to build a 5-1 onslaught stack for Thursday night, it will be from the Seattle side. Now, if we're looking at the 4-2 type of builds, I'll be at about 30% Seattle still, given, again, the condensed nature of this Arizona offense, but I don't mind getting to some 4-2s with the Arizona side as well. If I do build 4-2 lineups from the Arizona side, I will look to have Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, or Trey Benson as my captains. I will not consider anyone outside of those guys in 4-2 builds. You can also look to build 3-3 builds with either team for Thursday night. And then if we're doing 2-4 builds with my captain being from the 2 side, I would look again to have Trey McBride or Trey Benson in the captain spot in those lineups. If you want to get a Kyler and Trey McBride in there, I don't mind that as well. But that's the extent of the 2-man build for Thursday Night Football as it pertains to the Arizona side. If you're looking at the Seattle side, given that we're going to be heavy on 4-2 builds and 3-3 builds with Seattle, I won't have very many Seattle builds that are 2-4. If I do, they'll predominantly have Kenneth Walker or Jackson Smith and Njigba in the captain spot. If you have Njigba, you're going to want to look to get one of the quarterbacks, either Kyler or Sam Darnold, in the lineup, preferably Sam Darnold. And if you have Kenneth Walker, you can include the kicker or the defense as well in those lineups. The next thing I want to consider for Thursday night is going to be variability. There's not a lot of certainty as we head into Thursday Night Football. I mean, you have James Conner, who had that nasty injury on Sunday, and you're going to have Trey Benson taking over for him. We don't actually know the snap share that Trey Benson will have. We have an idea that he'll be a powerhouse back for Arizona, but we don't really know that he's going to be a bell cow back for Arizona, but I think he will be. I projected him with about 70% of the workload for Thursday Night Football, so I have him projected in that manner. And as we look at the player-by-player breakdown, I'll talk about my specific projections on Trey Benson and Amari DeMarcado. You also have Elijah Arroyo, who Seattle didn't have an actual practice on Monday, but they did have to put together an injury report given that the game is on Thursday. And they did have Arroyo listed as a limited participant with a groin injury, so I'm not sure how well he's going to be running as it pertains to Thursday night's game. I'll probably dock his projection about 10 to 20% given the nature of the position he plays and the injury that he currently has. And then also you have Zach Charbonnet, who was listed as a full participant, but we haven't actually seen him be a full participant with an ankle injury. And I will look to dock his projection for about 5 or 10% for Thursday Night Football. But again, most of your projection systems are just going to be guessing on these guys. So if you have the ability to select a variability for your positions, say you have Kyler Murray projected for 14 points, maybe you think there's a variability in there of 60%. You set that at 60%, and you're going to get somewhere between like 14 and 21 fantasy points every time that it builds a lineup for you in your optimizer. So that's what I've done for Thursday Night Football. That's typically what I like to do. In that some positions are just hard to pinpoint a projection. Jamar Chase could go for 5 fantasy points or he could go for 30. And I want something that is taking into account both of those extremes so that I'm getting a differential in my lineups so that I'm not duping myself, so to speak, in some of these larger field contests. The next thing I want to talk about is contest selection. I used to think about daily fantasy sports in the light of I would build my lineups to maximize my fantasy points. And while getting the most fantasy points is obviously important, it's not the main aspect of how you should be looking at building your teams. You should be looking at building your teams for the maximum ROI for the contest that you're entering. So you should be, you don't want to just hit run the optimizer. You don't want to hit run the sims and just take those lineups, copy and paste into, DraftKings or FanDuel. What you want to be doing is building lineups for the contest that you're playing. An example of that is for Monday Night Football, I had 75 lineups over on DraftKings. Lamar Jackson was my highest projected captain for Monday night. Loved the play. However, I only got to Lamar Jackson captain in one of the 75 lineups. I had a lineup that I was playing a field that was less than 100 people. I had a lineup that I thought was a little bit different with Lamar in the captain spot. I put him into that contest. I took down first place. I had 74 remaining lineups. All those contests had more than 1,000 people or 1,000 entries in those contests. And in each one of those, I had other captains I was comfortable with, but I felt as though the ownership on those captains were a bit low. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, just trying to think about who played last night. But, those kind of guys, Sam Laporta was in there, Mark Andrews was in there, those types of players that I felt were under-owned headed into Monday. And I ended up cashing 71 of the 74 lineups in larger field contests, just mixing and matching those captains, although I was having a large amount of Lamar in the flex, but that was getting me different than the 20 to 25% that had Lamar in the captain spot for Monday. So you want to be building, again, build your lineup for the contest that you're entering. Keep in mind your fantasy points that you want to see, available. Let's say you run your optimizer with no rules and your top lineup is at 130, fantasy points. Maybe you want to set a cap in your head. I'm not going below 110. I'm not going below 115. You don't want to get too crazy. You just want to bend it a little bit to make sure it's fitting the contest that you're entering. If you have any additional questions on that, drop them in the comments. I won't, shy away from those questions. I'll make sure I answer them for you before Thursday night's contest. But I wanted to make sure that I got that point across that, I used to, again, view things as I need the most fantasy points to win. You need the correct lineup in the correct contest to win. That is the most important aspect of daily fantasy sports, in my opinion, in 2025. The next thing I want to talk about is salary. Salary for Thursday night. I built 600 lineups so far, and none of my lineups had a projected salary of less than $48,000. I'll probably set mine at 48.4 because that's where the lowest lineup was in my top 100. Most of my lineups were 49,000 or above. So I do think there is some maximum salary aspects of Thursday night, but there are enough players on the slate that I think we can get different, even though you're spending the maximum amount of salary, or in my case, 49.4 or more. So you can get different, even though you're spending a majority of your salary, in my opinion, for Thursday night's contest. And going back to our last point, shaping those lineups to fit the contest that you're entering. And now as we jump into the player-by-player breakdown for Thursday Night Football, we have first up on the Seattle side, we have Sam Darnold. If you are going to have Sam Darnold in the captain, and I do think that he is captain viable for Thursday night, you're going to want to look to pair him alongside two pass catchers, in that I have him projected for 2 passing touchdowns on Thursday. You can get Jackson Smith and Jigba. You can get Kenneth Walker. You can get Cooper Kupp. You can get Torrey Horton, who caught some nice-looking balls on Sunday. You can have Zach Charbonnet in those lineups. I don't mind having Myers, the kicker. You can have Bobo in there. You could get Arroyo. You could get Barner. If Arroyo is limited or sits, you could get a little bit of Saubert in there as well. That's pretty much where my ownership would end. I think there was the Young. Young is also a consideration for me in the Sam Darnold captain lineups, but taking a look specifically at the guys I'm going to be predominantly playing in my Sam Darnold captains, I will have Darnold in the captain. I will mix in some Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet in those lineups, but here are the guys that I would look at if I'm going to have Sam Darnold in the captain spot on Thursday night. In that, if Darnold's going to be passing the ball, it's going to be to some of these pass catchers: Jackson Smith and Jigba, Cooper Kupp, Torrey Horton, Barner, and Myers. If I had to put these guys in order, I would probably go Darnold and Jigba, Barner, Myers, and then Horton and Kupp. I look at about the same. So don't mind doing that type of a build if you have Sam Darnold in the captain spot. Looking at the running back position, you have Kenneth Walker and you have Zach Charbonnet. Kenneth Walker is a captain a viable player for me for Thursday Night Football. If you have him in the captain spot, I don't mind mixing in Jacoby Myers, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Cooper Kupp if you'd like, Torrey Horton if you'd like, or the defense for Seattle here against Arizona. You don't have to have Sam Darnold in those lineups if you have Kenneth Walker up top. Zach Charbonnet will not be a captain viable player for me on Thursday night, but we'll look to mix him in the flex spot. This is a good matchup here for the Seattle running backs, and don't mind being over or at the field on these guys. Would like to be over the field on Kenneth Walker and about the field on Zach Charbonnet. If we look over at the wide receiver position, we have Jackson Smith and Jigba. We have Cooper Kupp. We have Torrey Horton. We have Young, and we have Bobo. Knocking out these two bottom guys quick. These guys are just going to be large field dart throws for me in huge contests. Won't play any of them in the captain spot. So if you want to mix in 1 or 2%, if you're doing a 150 build on Young and Bobo, don't mind getting to those guys as dart throws. Torrey Horton is someone that, even though he is 5,800, which is a bit priced up to me, and I do like the kickers, and the defense is a little bit more in the spot, but I don't mind getting to Torrey Horton. I will mix him in. If I find a captain lineup that I absolutely love that has Darnold in the flex and that spends most of the salary, I'll consider it, but it's not going to be something I look to get to a lot of. Cooper Kupp is just one of those players that I'll have like 1 or 2% in the captain spot, almost in the same vein as Torrey Horton. If I find a lineup that I really love that has Sam Darnold in the flex, that's a strong build in my opinion, that spends most of the salary, I don't mind getting it in there in the right contest, but not going to be something I look to do a lot on Thursday night. Jackson Smith and Jigba has dominated this Arizona team last year. I believe he had 2 games of 10 plus catches and a touchdown. So he's going to be someone I'm going to look to be over the field on in the captain spot. I do think that pass catcher is going to be your predominant play in the captain spot on Thursday night. My preferred captains all together would be like a Trey McBride, Smith and Jigba, Trey Benson, or Kenneth Walker. So I will look to be over the field on Jackson Smith and Jigba for Thursday night football. And then as we look at the tight end position for Seattle, we have A.J. Barner, we have Arroyo, and we'll consider Saubert. Saubert would be only in play if Arroyo sits. If Arroyo does not sit, I would not. If Arroyo sits, I would play Saubert. If Arroyo does not sit, I would not play Saubert. So Saubert will be a dart throw for me in large field contests only if Arroyo sits. If Arroyo sits, that's a great salary on him at $800. I will have quite a bit of him if he is somewhat healthy headed into Thursday, in that this is a great matchup, and that salary of $800 allows you to do a lot from the lineups that I've seen built to this point. Will not consider any captain ownership on Arroyo. AJ Barner, if Arroyo sits, will move up the board quite a bit for me at 2,800. He's someone I'll look to match the field on or be slightly over the field on in this great matchup. And his counterpart is a little banged up headed into Thursday night on a short week. So don't mind getting Barner in quite a few lineups. Probably will not have any captain on him. If you do, it's going to need to be in your millionaire maker type contest, these huge contests that you're looking to get severely different. But otherwise, won't have any Barner in the captain spot, but we'll look to be over the field in the flex. And then as we talk about the kicker and defenses for Seattle, I will have a couple of captain ownership on both these players as we head into Thursday Night Football. I think Myers is someone that has done pretty well this season, if memory serves me correctly. I mean, a 17, a 9, and an 8, that's perfectly fine. You know, these kickers are just priced down this year. They're finally getting up in the 5K range. They started off in the 4K range. Don't mind getting like 1 or 2% of Myers in the captain spot in huge fields. Otherwise, I'll just mix him in the flex, and I'll look to be around 15 to 20% in the flex on Myers for Thursday night. And then almost the same thing here with Seattle's defense. Don't mind getting them into the captain spot. I do think they've had, 16, 14, and 8 to start the year. Pretty solid. Don't mind mixing them in the captain spot in larger field contests. Again, you want to be, structuring your lineups to fit the contest that you're entering. But we'll be over the field in the flex at about 20% on Seattle's defense for Thursday Night Football. Going back and reviewing the Seattle side for Thursday night, my preferred captains here would be Smith and Jigba, Kenneth Walker, Darnold. And that's pretty much where small field would end for me. And I don't even really love Darnold in smaller fields. So if we're talking, 100-man to 1,000-man tournaments, you're going to want to look to get Smith and Jigba and Kenneth Walker as your primary captains for those contests. If you're looking at larger field, you can go with a Darnold, a Kupp, even a Torrey Horton, a Charbonnet, Myers, Seahawks defense. And if you want to get really off the board, Barner. but those are very much larger field contests. If I was building, you know, 3 lineups or 3 max or even a 10 max, I would look to predominantly have Smith and Jigba and Kenneth Walker, and I would look to get different in the flex in those lineups. If you do have Smith and Jigba up top, you might want to make sure you get Sam Darnold in the flex. Smith and Jigba's rushing upside is not great at all. If you have Kenneth Walker up top, I don't mind pairing him with Smith and Jigba in the flex, or Myers, the kicker, or the defense as well. If you want to get Cooper Kupp in there, don't mind that, or Torrey Horton as well. I don't hate those guys in the flex in my Kenneth Walker lineups. Next up, looking over at the Arizona side, at the QB position, we have Kyler Murray. I don't love this matchup. It's not terrible. It's not great, but I think Kyler Murray is just someone that I'm going to look to mix in the captain spot. I'll probably be a couple percentages under the field. If he comes in at like 10% in the captain spot, I'll be at somewhere in the 6 to 8% range. So I'm not going to be over the field on him, but I'll be right around about the field in the captain spot and in the flex on Kyler Murray. If you have Kyler Murray in your captain spot, don't mind pairing him with Trey Benson, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr. Can even get Ryland, the kicker, in there as well. To a lesser extent, DeMarcado. Can get Michael Wilson in there. Dortch, Zay Jones, Higgins, and Raymond would be where I would stop in the flex if you have Kyler up top. Clearing this out and going over to the running back position for the Cardinals for Thursday night. You have Trey Benson, and you have is Amari? I think it's Amari DeMarcado. And then to a lesser extent, Zonovan Knight. Not someone I'm going to look to be over the field on. Not a captain option for me. Would be a dart throw in larger field contest. If I have a 50K salary that's predominantly a 4-2 build with Seattle being the 4, and it fits the 50K and Zonovan Knight falls in there, don't mind it, because we don't really know the breakdown of the running back touches given the significant injury for Connor, who's going to miss the rest of the season. Zonovan Knight could see the field. DeMarcado did not look great when he took over on Sunday as the backup. DeMarcado was someone that won't consider in the captain spot, but we'll have him a decent amount in the flex. $3,800 is a bit priced up, but I assume he gets somewhere in the 4, 5, 6 fantasy point range. So he'll be someone I'll mix in, but will not be over the field on DeMarcado. I will be significantly over the field on Trey Benson for Thursday night. You know, they drafted this guy last year. He's looked pretty solid so far in the limited amount of touches he's had. So I will be over the field on Trey Benson for Thursday night. If you have Benson captain, you can put Murray in the flex. Really love the Benson-Trey McBride pairing. You can get Ryland in there. You can get the Cardinals defense if you like, or any of these pass catchers really. Significantly higher on the tight ends here versus the wide receivers. So if I was going to go Benson, I predominantly would go McBride or Ryland in the flex. If we're looking at the wide receiver position for the Cardinals, you have Marvin Harrison Jr., you have Michael Wilson, you have Greg Dortch, you have Zay Jones, and that's essentially where it's going to end there. Dortch and Jones would be large tournament dart throws for me. I don't really love either one of those guys' games. Michael Wilson, I would prefer to play him over on FanDuel, given that he's a bigger body receiver and a touchdown style of receiver. We'll mix him in the flex, but not going to have any captain ownership on Michael Wilson for Thursday Night Football. And I'll look to be under the field on Marvin Harrison in the flex and in the captain spot. I don't think this is a good spot against the Seattle defense that's been really great against wide receivers to start off 2025, and Marvin Harrison has just not really shown an upside yet. So he's going to be someone that if the captain ownership on him comes in at like 8%, I'll look to be at like 2%. If it comes in at 16%, I'll look to be at about 4%. I mean, it's just not a spot where I feel like he's going to have a huge game, but I want to have a couple of lineups just in case. If I were going to be playing him, it would be in a larger field tournament in the captain spot. If you do play him up top, you're going to want to have Kyler Murray in the flex in those lineups. Next up, and my favorite captain for Arizona would be Trey McBride. And then you have Higgins and Raymond. Either one of these guys are just salary savers in larger field contests. We'll not consider either of those guys in the captain spot on Higgins and Raymond. We'll look to be significantly over the field in the captain spot and the flex on Trey McBride. He's someone that I'll probably have 70, 80% total ownership on headed into Thursday Night Football. If the field ends up at 70, I'll be at 90. I'll have quite a bit of Trey McBride as we head into Thursday Night Football. Love this play here. Love him for, if you're betting this game, I love his overs, that kind of thing. A really good spot here and the best matchup in football for Trey McBride. And he caught a touchdown last week, so he's not allergic to touchdowns any longer. And then as we take a look at the kicker and defenses for the Cardinals, Ryland and the Cardinals defense. Kind of the same thing as Seattle, as we talked about earlier. You can mix them in 1 to 2% in larger field contest and the captain spot, but I'll be over the field. I'll probably be 20% on Ryland and then 15% on the Cardinals defense for Thursday Night Football. And that's going to do it for the breakdown for Thursday Night Football. We have the Seattle Seahawks traveling to take on the Arizona Cardinals. If you made it this far into the video, why not drop a like and why not subscribe to the channel? Over 90% of the folks watching the videos are liking the videos but not subscribing to the channel. I really would appreciate you guys taking a second to drop a like, drop a comment. Let me know who's your favorite captain for Thursday night and how are you looking at the slate. And then if you can subscribe to the channel, you'll be notified whenever I drop content. If you're available to check it out, cool. If not, no worries. Get the next video and we keep it moving. Again, I took down quite a bit of GPPs on Monday night. Hopefully we can do the same on Thursday. Shout out to the guy in the comments that said he took down a tournament on Monday night. Super happy for him. Hopefully we catch you guys here for Thursday Night Football, and hopefully we take down something over on DraftKings. Have a good night. We'll see you guys next time.